Well, good day, everyone. And it's my pleasure to talk a little bit about something that we've already heard wrapped through the service today, and that's mastering self-care. Because today and every day is a great day to evaluate how you're doing, what's your life like, and are you spending enough time on self? We ask that in the meditation this morning, for those that came in service meditation. Jackson mentioned something about mastery of music. And everywhere you look, there's the opportunity to be more loving and kind to yourself. So we're going to see what that might mean for you. Because when I think of self-care, sometimes I think about getting a nice massage after I've been working hard, or maybe I'd like to just lounge on the back patio and do absolutely nothing. Just gaze out at the world. Or maybe I want to go out and see some live music and go see the leader of the band and shake it up a little bit. There's lots of ways that I imagine it. And guess what? When I start imagining it in my mind, it starts to juice me up a little bit in my body. Makes me feel a little bit better. It's like planning a vacation. You plan a vacation, and you know what? Before you've even left, as soon as you start planning, you're already on vacation. You're already starting to get away from the hustle and bustle of life, and you know you're in for some good times. So, right now, take a moment and think, what does self-care mean to you? How does it feel? More importantly, what does it do to your heart? What does it feel like? What color is it? We talked about that. What's its texture? So I read a sad poll that said that in the United States, a majority of people feel disconnected and don't feel like they belong. Well, part of that is maybe they're not belonging with themselves. They haven't taken the time to be caring about who they are. And unfortunately, because of the teachings, we know that if we don't love ourselves, then we're telling the whole world, I'm not worth it. And what happens? Then the weight of the world is on your shoulders. You hunch down a little bit. You feel a little bit worse. And what happens? You don't feel so good. So what about the opposite? The opposite would be taking a chance and doing something for yourself. So I'm going to talk about body, mind, emotion, and spirit. And let's start with the body. Why? Well, of course, it's close. But the other thing, have you noticed that if I don't attend to my body, it talks to me pretty loud? Sometimes it has to talk to me so loud that it puts me in bed for a day to say, I tried to give you a hint, but now you're sick. Deal with it. You're going to sleep. So we, as humans, of course, are mostly, or not mostly, 75% or so water, much like the surface of the earth. And I was reminded of this water temple. It's in Redwood City, California, up in the hills. And it's the end of the pipe that comes down from the the Sierra Mountain, comes all the way down towards San Francisco. And the pressure of the difference in elevation bubbles that water up into the Pulgas water temple, designed in 1937 to commemorate the pipe that brings the water to millions of people from the snow melt every year. And this year we are glad to know that Hetch Hetchy is full of water. Cold, clear water. Water. Okay, wait. But wherever and whatever we happen to be, this body temple, as shown by Da Vinci, is perfect. What a machine it is. How marvelous that it just breathes us, it moves us. We can actually tell it what to do most of the time. And Ernest Holmes said, my body is the body of God, the living Spirit Almighty. So let's take a moment, right this moment, and just thank your body. thank it for breathing you, holding you up, allowing you to hear the words, allowing you to see the colors. What do you notice? Now, many of us know about the body, and you've heard of this practice called yoga. In the United States, most of us think of yoga as the asana practice. That is, the warrior pose. But there are 8 ways to enlightenment according to the yogic principles. But they all lead to the same place. So there's many ways, much like we do with our candle lighting service, many ways to achieve that enlightenment. And it was meant never to just be the poses. It's supposed to be the whole panoply of practices. Well, we can take that idea, bring it forward many thousands of years, and use it in our own self-care mastery today. One of them is breath work, or pranayama. And we did a little breath work when we did the meditation. Because when we do a breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold. Do it again. It's the box breath. 4 seconds up, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds out, 4 seconds hold. It's like a little dance. Everything's a box dance. And as you do that, your body gets trained into feeling good. It raises your energy. And there's lots of other breath practices like the fire breath, depending on what you want. There's another one called union or samadhi. And we practice that when we speak about there's only one thing going on. There's one power, there's one presence. Yoga, the tradition, says unity. It's all one thing. And Iyengar, who was one of the leaders in bringing yoga to the United States, said, the body is your temple. Keep it pure and clean for the soul to reside in. And you can find Iyengar-style yoga right here in the great Quad City area. It's one of the ones that has lasted because it's grounded in this way of thinking. So as we look at the body, we recognize that our minds help manipulate the body. Oftentimes we can say, reach out. I need a glass of water. And reach out. Our body moves over there. Get some water, feels better. Because the power of the mind is at the core of our teaching. And we say what we believe we can have. The song said it. What we believe we can have, we just have to move toward it. We have to call in the power of the universe and then help it by doing our part. So we heard last week, if you were here, about the story of Ernest Holmes praying over a person that was an alcohol and a drunk. So it can make immediate impact on a person's body through the mind and the action of the mind. So when we say, I am, we invoke the Word of God. So if you think about it, think about self-care, and you think about something you want, turn it into a positive, and then say, I am that. So I'll give you an example. For me, I want prosperity, and I am prosperity. So I say, I am prosperous. And I just declare it, I am prosperous. So inside, speaking to yourself, you can say, I am prosperous. Or if you want to jump up right now and say, I am healthy, just do it. Because when we declare it, and we declare it with feeling, then it has to be so. Because our bodies notice it, our mind notices it, and it changes the way we feel. So when we say something with positive energy and with feeling, then the universe responds. we say that the spiritual action of love and law must respond. After all, it's the law. Not just a good idea. The speed of light continues to be true. Now, when you stopped for a moment to think about that word, what did that do? You were quiet for a minute. Then you engaged your mind and some things came up, and then maybe you talked about your toast this morning or where you're going to go later. But for a moment, you had a little bit of quiet, a little bit of stillness. And so when you look at that, that's one of the other practice of yoga, is stilling the mind or meditating. Now, when you meditate, as we've seen, it doesn't mean sit there and go, quit thinking, quit thinking, quit thinking. No. Notice that you're thinking. And then you come back to your breath. And then you notice, oh, my toe, my gosh. And then you come back to your breath. And this practice, over time, helps to quiet the mind. The chatter that is the little mind doesn't need to be there. It's just doesn't know what to do. I mean, it's sitting there going, well, what do I do? I mean, it's so quiet here. I have to do something. You can give it a job and just say, go away. I'll call you back when I need you. I oftentimes come up and I say, well, I said to myself, self, quiet down. Because we have to be in charge, because otherwise, yakety, yakety, yak. It just keeps going. So as a Father's Day gift to myself, I'm going to take a little extra time sitting in my backyard. I have a little bench for meditation right under the wisteria. And it just feels so good. I'll turn on the fountain. You can hear the fountain now. And just quiet the mind. Because in that quiet and still place, then you connect to everything. It just feels so good. That is a form of self-care. Now, part of us is these called emotions. And do anyone remember Mary Poppins? I love to laugh long and loud and clear, and the more that I laugh, the more I'm a happier me, or something like that. Because the Sherman Brothers wrote that song for Mary Poppins. And when you think of that song, you can't help but think, well, that's funny. And then Dick Van Dyke, of course, was laughing. And if you haven't seen the movie, go back and you find it, I'm sure, one of our streaming services. But the Buddha recognized the power of the emotions, and you see these Buddha statues. You see the Buddha statue just sitting in contemplation. You see it with a slight smile. Or you see the laughing Buddha, or the joyful Buddha, right? I'm sure there's others, but those are the four that I could remember. So it shows 4 different emotions that are being played out in the body of Buddha. And in the body, over time, they say that biology becomes destiny. And so that if we care for ourselves in all these different ways, then we're just going to have a great and wonderful life, and you will make a difference, and then therefore you'll go out and infect everybody else, and it'll be a wonderful world. It's a wonderful world. So we can cultivate the whole spectrum of emotions. Now, in the old days, if you go back to the Greeks and the Romans, what did they think about emotions? Do you remember from your history in like grade school or whatever it was? They said that the gods and the goddesses embodied the emotions. And so whenever they did anything wrong, they just said, it wasn't me, it was Zeus. No, and I fell in love. Aphrodite made me do it. So it was easy because it was external to them, and they could just explain away anything. They didn't have to plead insanity. They just said one of the gods or the goddesses overcame them, and That's all she wrote. But we can choose, we know our emotions. And today, we understand the world a little differently. Because the world happens, things go on, people pull in front of you, they honk your horns, stuff happens. Then you have a thought about that. I wonder what the heck is up with that person. Or maybe it's not quite so nice that your thought. And then depending on what you thought and your conditioning and whether you got up on the wrong side of the bed and whether you're hungry or whatever, 1,000 different variables, then up comes this stuff in your body, and it could be anger, it could be jealousy, it could be joy. And your body then sends all these chemistry into your body, surging through, and about a half a second later, finally all this messages wind up to the body, and you decide fight, flight, dance, fun, whatever, and a new moment arises. And this cycle is constantly happening. So you can imagine somebody that's not aware of this can just feel like they're a puppet. And no wonder they thought the gods and goddesses were at them, because they felt like they were puppets to their emotions, that they didn't control them. But we know in Science of Mind that that's not true. We get to think, and then we get to be able to do what we want with that thought, and we can make a decision about what to do. But in order to do that, you have to slow down, because the body's fast. And if you don't take the time to slow it down and see the whole thing, you can't interrupt it. Now, I'm not talking about interrupt it and go, oh, everything's great. This person just whacked me in the head. No. Spiritual bypass. No, we're not talking about that. But we're talking about allowing this whole cycle to work out and understand it, observe it, and say, wow, what's into you today? Oh, man, I can't believe it. Whatever is going on. So we know from our spiritual practices that there's just really one thing going on, right? One power, one presence, and we see it. We live in a marvelous time. We can see the structure of the universe with the Webb telescope. We can go into the very depths of size at the level of quantum. It's amazing. And yet everywhere we go, we say, look, there's connection everywhere. And Ernest Holmes said, there is one infinite spirit, and every time one says, I am, they proclaim it. 2,500 years earlier, Psalms 19, the heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim the work of his hand. And of course, at that time, remember, they didn't have she, he, they, them. So mankind was called he. And it wasn't taken as a pejorative. Instead, it was just understood that we're speaking for everybody in a big way. So today, we've seen a little bit about self-care, but it's unique to every single person. Every single person has a new and their own unique way of self-care. What's yours? And what are you going to do to master it? Now, Jackson talked about playing piano. I got to see the Dalai Lama at Davie Symphony Hall, and the person that opened up for him was this famous pianist called Michael Tilson Thomas. And someone asked the Dalai Lama, well, how do you get to be such a good spiritual dude like you? And he goes over to Michael and says, Michael, how long you been playing piano? Since I was 4. And the Dalai Lama said, this since I was 2. 10,000 hours at a minimum to master something. Have you been putting in your 10,000 hours towards self-care mastery? You might shake your head no, but the truth is, you've been mastering your life for your whole life. Now we get the chance to really master it. Master your body, your mind, your emotions, your spirit. Let's take that into prayer, knowing the truth. Because there's only one thing going on. There's one power, there's one presence, there's one enormous, powerful being that is in and through and as everything seen, touched, felt, sensed, as well as the ineffable and the invisible. For we are multi-dimensional creatures, not just the five senses, but the multi-senses. We know it to be true, and it's true about the world, then it must be true about us right here, right now, in this moment. So what I know is that our own self-care is a gift. It's a gift to ourselves, and it's a gift to the world. And the more we practice, the better we feel. So today, this week, and for the rest of your life, just know that self-care is not selfish. It's selfless. So embrace it. Embrace the you. Embrace the things that make you light up. Allow them to be and shine them to the world. Because as you shine, the rest of the world is allowed to shine too. So I'm just so grateful for this time together. And I just say yes and send these words into the action of love and law, knowing it's already done, and we can anchor it together with, and so it is.